into the Paladins Pro Circuit Community Broadcast. I'm Fawn, of course, joined here by my main man, Kresnik, as we're going to head right into the Brazilian region of games. And man, I'm not going to get used to this picture. I just love it. Like,
Wait,
I love it being here
do you want
to
me to just?
represent
I
me.
could just keep it, and then you don't have to dress up for the cast ever again.
Just
Listen,
never
man.
again.
You could literally wear whatever at this point, and that would be okay. Oh no, oh, it's not. It's updating live. No, I was. That's actually really that's really disappointing. For those of you who don't know how OBS works, you have a preview screen and a program screen. You can change things on the preview screen before it goes to what you guys get to see, and I didn't expect it to get changed live. Unfortunately, though, now we have Chef Von RD here with me here. Please do not follow that Twitter account.
Yeah, dude,
not endorsed.
I do not know whose Twitter account that is. I definitely would not.
You better register that very quickly, but very quickly could be the pace of this game. We have Tempest team versus Parallax Gaming. It's number 1 versus number now 5, now that they've taken down Fatal Ambition, but it's still a one-sided, potentially, game. Tempest looked a little bit better for 1 week, and then they didn't play 2 weeks in a row. They just did not have 5 players 2 weeks in a row. This is the first time they've showed up since their last win. They've had a 2-week-long hangover after their victory celebration, and now they're just coming out of it here in Vora's Pact. I think not a lot has changed, but enough has changed, or we could see them maybe looking a little bit uncomfortable.
We're so concerned about it is this is what happened during, and I'm gonna make a. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a callback. This is what we saw when it for SSG, like around like last year, right, where
Sure.
they were gone for a very huge majority of the season, and they showed up.
Yeah.
And they struggled, and that's what I'm concerned about for Tempest team today.
Yeah, that kind of stunk. I'm not gonna lie. As
It
someone
did.
who
It
is
sucked.
partially on the receiving end of that whole situation, not the best. There was really, for their sake, there was really no one to scrim. I mean, you just could not.
Right.
We just could not scrim. I mean, we would scrim some of these teams on maybe 100 ping, where they have 20 ping and a big advantage for them, or we would scrim against Brazilian teams, which at the time SSG was miles ahead of. They were the only team at that caliber that they could really do it. But that's neither here nor there. I actually have to get you guys the map picks and bans, which means I'm going to have to go into the actual match thread where they reported everything. I have it right here. Parallax Gaming had the first pick of map and map ban. They banned Warder's Gate and Shattered Desert. I think not too surprising. And in response, Tempest team, captained by Tiberius, banned Fish Market and Ice Mines. So those were the 4 maps taken out. Map number 1, chosen by Parallax Gaming's Outlander, is going to be Jaguar Falls. Also, I think to the surprise of nobody, with Bright Marsh banned, we need to go back to something a little bit more, just a sense of normalcy, which I think all of us can be pretty happy to get back in our daily lives here at this point. I can pull us into this pick ban screen between these two teams, and we'll see exactly how Parallax decide to handle this.
So let's of course jump right into the picks and bans, and I'm interested to see exactly what it is that they'll ban, because I mean Brazil has been one of those regions that has just consistently surprised us with some of their picks, going back to some of these different characters. I mean, we've seen Leon, we've seen Barrick here in situations where we would have seen a Vivian, a situation where we would have seen a Victor. We've seen so many different things being brought out on the side of the Brazilian region. But so far, it's the Torvald and the Ash ban is how things are going to lead off here, which is interesting because it's a Torvald ban. In last region, we didn't even really see Torvald, despite his rise to fame as well.
Yeah, I mean, Torvald, it is surprising that he's kind of fallen out of things a bit in the other regions, but I mean, North America and Brazil still understand what he does to the team. He's fantastic on most maps. He is basically a pocket support that, even though they need line of sight, it's 1,000 burst heal effectively, plus the 375, plus the speed, plus the ammo. It's just a lot that Torvald brings to the table, as long as you don't play him as a tank. That's really what people kind of had to figure out over time to fill in for it. Now the first pick left wide open for Parallax Gaming, and I think to no surprise, Genos will be the pick up by them. Tempest team spent their time target banning towards Parallax, and they gave up that Genos right to them.
Yeah, and that's going to be concerning because you have
You think so?
the damage amp on the side of Parallax Gaming's team, which means now they can draft whatever they feel like because you have that 15% luminary buff at your back. So that's something you need to be a lot more concerned about, honestly. Corvus and Droxus on the side of Tempest team, so they've at least managed to sort of clap back to the first Genos pick here very well, because you now have a very great support and you have an even better flank.
Yeah, and Cassie picked up here early. Something that happens pretty normally in Brazil. Cassie is a little bit higher priority, even with kind of a faltering win rate to a degree here. Parallax now probably want a tank with none being taken left and a few choices still up. And hey, why not? Makoa, he's great into Androxus, good into Terminus also if it gets picked up on the other side. So the Makoa will be able to make quite a big difference. These buffs have kind of pushed him pretty high back up to where he was previously in the meta. So we'll see exactly how he'll function here. And our first look at him actually since his changes.
Yeah, Makoa being picked here means that I'm even more so concerned for Tempest team now, because you mentioned it before. You have the shell spin being available to you that now does 500 instead of 150. You now have more uses for it other than just trying to escape, right? And that means, especially if people are lined up, you shell spin through a whole bunch of people, you knock them over like bowling pins, if anything. And that's going to be a lot harder, because that's 500 damage each person now has to tank whoever it is that he hits. So he can engage with that even if he wants to. He doesn't have to leave. He can be one of those more aggressive dive composition tanks now, because of the fact that his shell spin does a lot more damage. And there's plenty of cards that help him out with that as well. But Talus on Parallax Gaming side, that's interesting. Why the Talus here? Is there anything that stands out to you as to why?
No. But okay. I think it's I mean, I'm just being honest, they're really not sure. I don't think it's a great matchup into the Androxus. I think it's okay into the tanks. That's a bigger part of it. Also, if the Talus, if they're having trouble, this is kind of a more specific thing, but I think if the Talus if they're having trouble with the Terminus and the Talus died early, the Talus can ult from spawn, and the amount of time it's going to take him to travel from the spawn back to the point, that Terminus won't have his siphon up. So it could be a little trick like that, where that's kind of another way to CC and knock down that Terminus siphon to stop that Atlas from using his second chance. Just a couple more ways to kind of trap them and catch them in and make things a little bit tougher for them to do. So one last pick left for Tempest team, and it'll be Tiberius, a character that mostly was being played in Brazil, obviously still Brazil, so we're going to see him here on this map. He's not bad, he just tends to be outclassed by some of the other hit scan backlines. So interesting. I think it's going to function fine. He just has to be careful about when he uses his blade and his cooldowns, because if he's caught between cooldowns by that Talus, he's not living fun.
A lot that they have to be concerned about on the side of Tempest team, because you have to deal with the damage you have to deal with the shell spin burst that we were just talking about. And then you even have to deal with the Cassie potential big game damage. You have to worry about Fernando's Immortal. You have to worry about Talus's overcharge damage. I mean, that's something you can't really scoff at. I mean, that's a lot of damage to take all at once. That can burn you quicker than you might be expecting it. So you may mess up some of your cooldowns with that if you're engaged in a one-on-one trade with him, if anything. Tempest team, though, their comp's actually pretty good as well. I mean, you have Atlas Terminus. That's a great look for not only the off tank, making sure that you can play at a lot of these different areas, like by statue, by sun, if anything, right? It's going to be a lot harder for them to try and fight back into this composition because of the sustainability and the survivability that Tempest team have innately in their team.
Yeah, definitely. It will be difficult for them. We'll head into the game and see exactly how things function with the talents also lined up here. Half Shell, I think, no surprise to anybody as the pickup right now after those changes. It definitely gives a little bit more flexibility to it. And wait, oh my god, I actually missaw the ultimate icon for Tigron's Fury. Oh, it actually is the wrong one. That's why I thought that was the jump damage one, because it is just not the same text for it. But Explosive Blade, not too surprising either. I think nothing else really comes to a shock. Now, for those of you who don't watch Brazil all the time, I figured I'll let you know Temper is the only controller player currently in this match. If what they posted in the match thread is to be believed, Temper is the only controller player here, so only one, and he's actually on tank, so interesting to see. But an early hook right now into an overcharge. He's just gone.
Here comes Tempest once again moving in, takes the rune of travel back to make sure he can escape out of what could have been a very bad position for Dentic. Now proves to be advantageous for Parallax Gaming, and there it is. Shell spin goes right through him, bursts him down. The Spexy finds the finishing blow onto the Atlas. And now you have Talus pushing up by the side, wants to push into Secret and manages to lower him down thanks to Kronz. Dentic is at least able to find one kill for himself once again. As the hook goes out, manages to hook Terminus through his siphon, pulls him in. They won't find the kill, but they find plenty of damage. Never mind, they will find the kill as Kuze finds the finishing blow.
Yeah, Kuze filling in here on this off tech position with Intic. Switching to the other DPS. Great hook on a play tech will completely deny that. Even with Walther getting a follow-up kill, it won't actually turn things any further. Just add a kill to the Aspexy death column, and Parallax are able to keep this moving.
This is going by so quickly. Tempest team have to sort of find their footing here. When they do find their position, they need to stand their ground. But in situations like this, where they get picked off so heavily individually that it becomes problematic for anybody, Kronz moves in, gets set back, and actually finds a way out of the engagement thanks to the setback. I mean, he pushed in so aggressively, and maybe they could have even found the pick, but it doesn't matter, especially when you get set back. You put out a position, play tech darts, hook them down. Now you have Retlaw. Soon after that, you've got 3 kills on the side of Tempest team. On the side of Parallax Gaming, excuse me. Tempest team have 3 men down. Won't really be able to try and contest this objective here. Parallax are they're dominating.
Yeah, they're really keeping this game completely in their control so far, and no one really able to burst through. Look at that, Darius tries and ends up falling. He can't really use that second chance and go away. Kuze still keeping up the pressure, him filling in for Midtown and seeming to do a pretty decent job here so far for them. This Talos also seems to be working out fairly well. They playing off of the hooks that Kuze is getting. I do love to see it, and actually only death so far for Aspexy. The only death for all of Parallax, excuse me, is Aspexy's off of that kill after the capture happened. Walther keeping things close, but I mean for himself, but really no one else on the team for them. I will say I think they are not super used to playing into half shell Makoa, because I saw Walther at one point during a complete stalemate just getting poke onto the shell. There was no reason to shoot it. He was just shooting it and giving that Makoa free cooldown. I have a feeling as half shell is in this meta, we're going to see a lot of people doing that, and we're going to have to see a lot of teams figure out that, hey, please don't give the enemy Makoa cooldown. But right now Kuze, he's on his own and not shooting. He's already gotten a few back.
We have a 3% and 3% tie here. Timber makes his way in, from his face, goes wide, and man, just to not find anything as he tries to send it right down the side, a little bit off to the right. Not going to find the kill. Aspexy finds a double kill of his own. Retlaw has to find some sort of way to back off as Kuze pops the Ancient Rage, keeps himself alive and keeps himself in the fight. As now he pushes up the stairs into the spawn with the rest of the team. They can't really find any sort of way to fight back against Parallax Gaming here, as it is a slaughter right now. Very unlucky for Tempest team, as they have to try and find their way in. Use the blade dance, just wants to see if he can touch, but really is looking for better positioning. That's what it seems like. As he moves in, moves all the way to the back, tries to kill Genos, manages to find the kill, but even still, they are probably going to be able to find this objective. They just try and use them to see if they can move him back. Tiberius actually makes it onto point, uses the Shatterfall, make it to the objective, and stalls out for a little bit longer.
Well, this Talos is just a CC flank right now. That's all they're using him for. He's just knockback for them right now as Kronz gets knocked away and setback, so he should fall. No chance to get another shield here, but look at this ground being taken out from the side. Parallax, I think, smartly moving in. They kind of waste the crush, and they might have a chance to get another touch here.
Percent to 85. Stintic finds plenty of damage into the other team. Dars manages to trade things out 1-for-1 as now Terminus moves his way back up to the objective, causes the overtime touch, but even still they find 2 kills on the way in. That means that Parallax Gaming have submitted a 3rd point for them on Jaguar Falls.
Yeah, plenty of ground retaken by Parallax there off the back of, I think, a fantastic pressure from Dintic on this Talus here. And look at the space they're already taking. Parallax pretty far in on the left, even blocked off. Kronz actually just dives straight into the middle of them with Dintic and kills Playtech. So no Androxus. This will let them get even more aggressive as Darius has his second chance forced by a disengage.
Right, and that means that they're not going to be able to get this kill directly onto Darius, as they now have to try to sort of find some way to hold on if you're on Tempest team side, but it looks like every time I say that they aren't quite able to do so. It doesn't seem like they're really able to ever hold on against this aggression that Parallax Gaming have, and it pays off so well for them too. Because every time his space gets used, they even manage to find the kill onto Tiberius, which again thanks to their time in space, Playtech finding the shots, looking for an opportunity to better position himself, but even still, can't find anything. He finds the damage, but it doesn't matter for long because Parallax, they roll this one in.
Oh, I guess it's over. I straight up thought they were going to actually make it back in, but they just didn't. They didn't walk through, even though they were down a few, did not even really make an attempt. The tanks, I think, just putting on too much pressure for them to actually break through on their side, unable to make it in, will seal the deal for round number 1, game number 1 for Parallax. As we can look at the stats from that one, Tempest team definitely struggled to really get much going. I think Walther, the one who kind of ran away, damage department for his team, Darius and Playtech close by behind, but in general, just the backlines did what they could, and Parallax had the sustain and shields with their tanks to mitigate most of the damage the Tempest were doing.
Yeah, and it seems like due to the stats overall, the most damage that was actually taken was by the Terminus and by the Atlas, which is weird to sort of consider that because of the fact that I'm trying to find out a way how to properly phrase it, but in the long run, I guess it makes sense they took the most damage. I mean, one of them
they do have the most health.
The other one's 3 and 6, but even still, yeah, you are right. They do have the most health because you almost quote unquote for Atlas you have 2 health bars to burn through. For Terminus, you technically have 2 health bars to burn through if you consider his reanimate, but even still, Makoa. You have Makoa, you have Fernando, 3 and 1, 14 and 10, 14 and 10 assists respectively on the side of the front liners on Parallax Gaming size. 9, 3 and 5, 5, 1 and 17. I mean, beautiful slash lines for Parallax Gaming. They were just able to control a lot more of those sides. Every time they were trying to push in, they were end up getting picked off. It did not matter. It literally did not matter what type of advantage point they were trying to take on the side of Tempest team. It never worked out for them. And since Hook goes through Terminus Siphon, it made it worse for them. Like there's nothing they could even do in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, they had a really, really tough matchup picking that Terminus into the Makoa. It's not easy. I'll tell you right now. It's not unwinnable, but it's not easy. And I think also running that Crush just to deal with Kronz, I mean, he's just going to go Resilience. He's just not going to fight you when you have that up. I think maybe even Undying isn't the worst there, weirdly enough for me to say, so you can survive a little bit more of those hooks, because he definitely had some issues keeping himself going in these fights. But Tempest team, that wasn't their pick. That was Parallax's choice. So Tempest team get to go to the next map of their choice, which is going to be Splitstone Quarry. So another standard map we've seen so far. The same 3 today collectively between Jag, Split, and Stone. Tempest team, though, now with the first pick, maybe things change, and there is one other thing that is changed that I can confirm. Kronz has plugged in the sticks for this draft.
Yeah.
So Kronz is swapping to the controller as the main tank here.
I'm interested to see some of these bans as well on the side of Splitstone Quarry. I mean, banning off Torvald, not something that we saw in the last region in Europe, but Brazil feels like it has that sort of value. So I wonder if they'll prioritize those and sort of just leave other things open, but they're changing it up this time around. They want to get rid of the Genos here, but Parallax actually is going to get rid of the Torvald. They at least get rid of one of the pocket picks. Don't want to leave them in the game. They posed too much of a threat last time, and they actually get rid of Genos and Makoa on the side of Tempest team. And then you have Parallax Gaming trying to find their last ban.
Fawnet's back.
Pirate Ship?
The Makoa ban is back.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was trying to figure out what you meant, because I'm like that. I was like, Pirates, you need Makoa for Pirate Ship, but no, you're right. It's like we're taking a blast from the past.
He's home.
Makoa finding his way into the ban column once again means that he's a threat that people have recognized, and the buff once again to the shell spin. We've talked about this enough, but I'm just gonna mention it again. That 500 damage is huge. We saw it burn down Dars multiple times. It's a lot that you have to get rid of. Buck, though, is going to be picking us up to his team first. Maybe they go for a little bit more of a sustainy draft here. It seems like that's what they want the Buck for, but it's hard to out-sustain that Corvus, so they start things off with the Corvus Andro.
Yeah, I think the Buck, it makes sense specifically for Splitstone Quarry. It's just a good map for Buck in general, with him being able to take that high ground and play behind them. I think it is definitely a functional pickup for them with Nando. Now, sharing it with him, also a great, I think, map for him, being able to survive on the point with his shield, having the ultimate for quarry fights, which can get really chaotic. Just having a moment's reprieve from that, I think, helps significantly and Grover, a great healer as well. I think just 3 solid pickups so far from Tempest team. They definitely shouldn't feel too uncomfortable with what they're actually. Wait, someone in chat mentioned it as I lock in the Strix for Parallax. It's Torvald and Makoa banned. Fun.
Oh, it really is like last
Oh
year.
no!
Wow. That didn't even hit me. It's like we're going back to 2019. It is gone. Like Makoa, Torvald, they're both in the ban column, like as if this was a year ago, around the same time where these characters were getting banned consistently, right before Worlds.
It's just what I think at the end of the day, when they tune their kits, unless they're super under-tuned, this is how it's just gotta be. At this level of gameplay, at this level of team play, it's just what happens, right? To be able to save someone on a coordinated play, as Torvald being able to hook someone on their team and have constant follow-up on it as Makoa, these just as at a design level are going to be better in the hands of better players, in the hands of coordinated teams. So when they're actually playable, of course, they're going to end up in those columns in these games as it comes down to it. It just makes sense to have those kind of tanks kind of playing around there. Victor is the next pickup for Tempest team, so that's going to play on high into the Andro and Maeve. That's not going to be that easy, but gonna figure out how they're gonna make it work. And actually a Furia to close things out for Tempest team, so a little bit of extra healing, a little bit of an engage with that Inflame, and a lot of damage coming from those 2 healers. So kind of a hybrid sustainy damaging comp from them. And Parallax, 1 pick left. I mean, Inara's available. They could go Barrick if they need a solo tank. Just what are you thinking they're gonna go, Fawn? Actually,
I personally think
wait, Fawn. Okay. You have one choice. It's a little off the beaten path.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so this is gonna go with my line of thinking. Is it a frontliner?
No.
Really? So
it's
it might be an actual. It might actually be another support then. They might have triple DPS.
I'll give you
supports, actually.
1 pick. It's not a tank.
Oh, okay. So it's not a tank. I don't think they go quad DPS. I think they go another healer. I think it might. Could they go? Okay, what would actually work with this? Could it be Damba?
It's Koga, Fawn. Fawn, it's Koga.
No way! They actually went quad DPS?
Yeah, it's Koga.
Is this really last year?
Listen,
what year am I in?
Listen. Well, no, this was the quad DPS was this year. Hey, calm down. Quad DPS was this year. It was earlier in this year when everyone thought that tanks were just dead. Which I don't think they were, because there's a lot of tanks being played in this meta that were not really changed whatsoever. So, no, it's Koga. It's going to be Koga for Parallax Gaming, and I know that Kron's normally the tank player. Again, remember, he plugged in his controller. He's on Strix, so he'll be the one playing that back line of thinking. It's just going to be a bit of a tone switch, I think, from Parallax, going from that double tank shield centric composition that they just had to this that they're using now. But I'll get the game ready, and whenever we are able to get in it, I want to see how they play these mids, because it's not going to be normal no matter what they do. I don't think there's any way you can play this comp even 1% of normal.
So this is like all in, and I know we say all in.
You can't go half in with this one.
Like I know we say all in, like when you see some of those off tanks and you have like this dive. Like, no, I don't think you understand. When I say all in, for those in chat that may not quite understand this, I mean, it doesn't matter if they are going to die. They will move. They have to go in.
Yeah.
It's gonna look like they might try and int, but they have to fight. There is no other option. It doesn't matter what their characters are. It doesn't matter what they're going up against. If they do not force here, if they do not keep forcing fights, they do not win. That is literally what this draft is. This draft is, we are in your face. We know we're gonna die. We don't care.
Yeah, and looking at what they've picked up, they are not doing anything really to be specifically tanky. They want more damage. The only one who's a little bit more tanky, maybe the Strix and the Koga, just because of just how the nature of this draft has to go. But this quad DPS into the single tank composition, I think they have to be careful of this Buck, because he can just snowball completely out of control if they leave him uncovered.
Well, here we go, a quad DPS
Here we
game.
go.
Managed to being pocketed by a Corvus, and Yep, this is it. Exactly what I was talking about. They don't have much of a choice, and here they go. They're sending all the way in. Buck all the way in the back line. They don't care if they die. They're going in one after the next one. They took out one. They took out the other one, and they took out the third one.
And they're done.
That's
and
it.
there they go.
That's it. That's the draft. That's
Meanwhile, wait, let's cut to some solid gameplay. And we're back to Strix over here. Temper is definitely sustaining on the point that Buck getting caught out. I said he had to be the priority. They couldn't leave him uncontested. So they had to fight him first. Just catch Walther out. Don't let him do much of anything. And I think it was smart to do, but Walther's in a great position here on the side. But actually got forced out by Dintic and doesn't have the sustain to stay into it. So he has to leave.
75% for Tempest team already. They were able to win the first, I can't even say the first mid, they were really just playing a defensive hold against Parallax Gaming, if anything. Kuze manages to find the daggers, moves all the way in as well. Or doesn't move all the way in, I should say. He manages to set himself right on point and just plays a little bit more back. They're going to play a little bit more reserved in terms of how they want to do this damage, and it seems like it's sort of working out for them in the long run. They have to back up, try and see if they can deal with Koga, but the Shadow Step is going to keep them alive. But even still, while this is happening, they don't stand on the objective. They can't stand on the objective. They have to play around these corners. They have to just prevent them from getting the point easily. That's what their prerogative is right now. They can't capture it, but they're not going to let them do it, and that seems to be how both of these teams are playing right now.
Yeah, it's just the way it's going to have to work here. But now that Temper gets a little bit more time on the point, they will have to start touching. They need to at least get overtime as Playtech tries to force them out. But Spexy, look at this. He manages to catch the tank with the Cyclone Strike.
They even use the Whirlwind to see if they can try and put a stop to that as well. Now we have Playtech that goes down soon after that. A person arm in the back. Vine Grip is done. And so is the Grover. 48% to 99. Parallax Gaming, they win that mid-fight. I'm not too sure how they managed to get the kill on the Fernando. Maybe he was staying a little bit overextended, trying to lock himself in a 1v1 with that Koga by fidget spinners, but he goes down again. Temper on the way in, and they capture the point. With the draft that they have, they managed to make the most of it. That's okay. All right, Parallax Gaming 1-0.
Yeah, they get it going for them. They get to stay aggressive here as well, staggering some more kills here. And someone in chat asked, did Mittel quit? I don't think so. I had heard that that was the case, considering the man is still streaming. I think he just wasn't here this week when this was played, so Kuze, I think, filling in well so far. I haven't seen him really play too much of the game before, but seems to be doing well on this DPS and on the tank last game, as him and Spexy keep up the pressure here in Mines. Behind the shield is really the only moments of respite that they have on Tempest team to get through all this damage, and it opened up some space for Playtech to take this duel.
Oh! They put a lot of pressure into Playtech in the back, but the last person you would have expected to dive onto anyone would have been the Corpus, and now he can't make his way out of this engagement here. They find plenty of kills to pick up the slack on the side of Tempest team. Now, they're the ones in control here. They will do at least a little bit more for themselves. A minute, 20 seconds remaining to them. They're plugging shots into the opposing team, Tempest team. They're eating quite a bit of damage here. There's still not much. Can he make it up there? He does. He's going to be able to use this one charge of the Shadow Step to make sure he gets in. Tosses out some shots here and there thanks to the SMGs, but he's going to make it out in the long run. Either they want to dive to the back line, though. Grover is there. They manage to find the finishing blow, and they get that kill on him almost instantly. 1-for-1 trade. They use the Koga ultimate as well, trying to see what they can do. But if anything, it's not going to be enough. They're still trying to roll the cart.
Yeah, they have some little bit of pressure here with that reset here. The kill will get him that second one as well, the bounce house. This is the snowball I was kind of warning about. You need to stop him from getting these kill chains as Walther manages to link 4 jumps in a row. The heroic leap helping them find those kills with that bounce house. Bounce house bulk up, it's kind of a discussion that we don't hear a lot. A lot of people just say, oh, bulk up is safer. But sometimes you really need the bounce house when you're playing against a lot of squishy targets like this. Sometimes when you're playing against Rom, because it can counter the dash, but it won't save your Victor. Look at this. Ultimate's being popped right now, and Walther can't do anything about it.
The cursed arm being sent in the mine shaft means that whoever's standing in that line of sight has to back up Temper. It's brought down instantly. Now the rest of Parallax Gaming and a 4 DPS rampage are going to keep on rolling the cart forward, while the Spexy going to play on the sides here, looking for a better opportunity to catch someone out that might try and get the cart almost instantly. Let's see if they toss out the Pyre Strike. They want to see if they can get the stun off in time. And the Entropic Breach goes out, gets dropped directly on the objective. Anyone that stands there is going to have a bit of a rough time trying to hold on. They do defend successfully, though, make it so that Parallax Gaming don't just roll this one in and make it a 2-0.
And of course they defend successfully. Who's touching? No one's going to the point. I mean, they lost 2 of them, and no one else is going to throw away their KD for it, even though they are looking pretty tough, but I think that makes a lot of sense. How are you going to stay alive? This build by Aspexy may be helping in that regard a little bit. Something to prove 5, 50% energy when he gets knocked low, so he'll have a second dash for him to use. Just many different ways to kind of reset it. But they had to spend almost everything for that defense. I mean, Temper used the Immortal. They had the Inflame spent by the Furia. The Barrage, close, but not quite there yet. Just the Whirlwind and the Buckwild to play off of. Whirlwind will stop aggression. Buckwild, maybe just to win one duel. But if they overwhelm the Buck again, if they manage to get onto him just like they did last time, I don't think Buckwild's really going to help.
Well, we can only see if it'll actually pay off this time around. They've already learned how they want to play this one. Parallax game. They're not going to force the dive. They're going to play the same way they did last round. They ended up netting them the objective. They're going to play around these corners, make sure they can take some of these long extended fights, make sure that they can't make it to the objective here, but they have to pop the world. When will he live long enough? And it seems like he lives, manages to heal to full, but he has to find a way out. Vine grips his way out of that scenario and finds himself into the back line of his team, able to at least get a little bit of a breather here, but I can't say the same for Temper. They actually managed to get rid of the Grover. They forced him all the way into the back, forced him out of position, and now Temper goes down soon after that. Koga playing low ground here, seeing if he can win the trade one-on-one, or at least plug in the damage if he needs to into the buck. With the accursed arm, see if they can find some damage in the back line. They do manage to find that. 75% to 9 is Parallax Gaming. Unexpectedly held on. They 4 DPS comp and even managed to find the kill on Temper on the way in. I don't know what to say about this one.
I mean, this is already one of the better triple DPS maps in the game. I guess add another one and have fantastic players on every single one, and you'll be doing more than fine. This Koga by Aspexy is looking great as well. I think it's kind of an undervalued pick in other regions. I mean, EU doesn't play Torvald, NA and BR don't play Grover. It's kind of what it came down to. Glad to see it getting a little bit more recognition. Look at this bounce house by Walther. Knocks them both up, and they knock them both down right after, thanks to the root follow-up by Darius.
Find plenty of kills to at least allow themselves to not be forced to backpedal against Parallax Gaming's 4 DPS composition. So they'll at least be able to hold on for a tiny bit of a zone. They'll at least be able to force them back on the way in, see if they can get those dismounts, but even still, you've got a lot of mobile characters on the side of Parallax Gaming. Might be a bit of a issue here to see if they can force them any more back than they might want to. See if they've already made it back to the objective here. They are forcing them back. A minute, 25 seconds still remaining on the clock. The cart is pretty much halfway. Aspexy has to find a way out. He doesn't want to get killed by the Fernet. They either use the barrage, tries to use the reversal to counter it, but still not enough.
Look at this space, though. They gave up elevator completely, and look how aggressive Kronz is right now. The Strix on the sticks, walking in, but countered out by Walther.
Jumped in, bounce house takes advantage here. And managed to find the kill. Double kill for the Buck, but even still, you have 2 kills for Parallax Gaming, as they are holding on to the objective here. Making sure they can live for a little bit longer. 2-1 is the score. So trying to make this a 3-1 on the side of Parallax Gaming. It doesn't seem like they're going to really be able to do much of that, though, as they are forced away by Tempest team for the 2nd time on this push, with less time to make this conversion work for them.
Space is just being given up a little bit out of fear for the damage coming in from them, but here comes an engagement off of this Midnight right now, but they lose Dintick early, and I think that might just end it right away for them.
Red Law manages to find the kill onto the Androxus, meaning it might be a lot harder for this 4 DPS comp to make use if they... Okay, maybe it's not as hard as we may have suspected it to be, as they find 2 kills back to back. Even still, that forces Temper to back off of the objective here and force himself all the way towards our spawn, or at least by Mine Shaft. They are able to at least touch on the cart here, as they are getting healed. Pretty much pack up almost instantly. Shadow Step from Koga as they're finding the damage, they're finding the kills. But this is where it happened last time. They weren't quite able to hold on how they wanted to. Reversal goes out. They're not going to be able to hold on for that much longer. Too many low health pools. It's tied to a 2-2.
Yeah, no way for them to convert it. It's so tough when it gets that close, especially if you're trying to save ultimates, which actually, I'm kind of surprised that we're seeing happen. I felt like every time we've seen Brazil recently, just this region in general, they just toss out ults, man. They don't even care. Anytime we get close, they're just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And nothing sticking really for Tempest team on these mids. But for their sake, luckily, nothing sticking for Parallax on these last caps. Maybe if they're willing to spend something else, they can make it work out, though, right? They can throw in that flashbang. They can use that accursed arm during the chaos and maybe find some kills. But didn't want to pull the trigger. I think it made sense. They were all so low. Could not make it work for them. But another mid. This, again, I think is the part of the map where they should be playing successfully. But look at this death ball right now from them, and they're walking maybe right into this accursed arm, but Dintic doesn't want to use it.
Seems like he's just playing extremely high up there. Manages to find the shot on the Dars that submits a 5v4. Parallax Gaming here. They use the Inflame defensively. See if they can give themselves a little bit of extra damage on the way out. Outlander is holding on to the objective.
Still managing to cap as the rest of them get aggressive here. Spexy, Cyclone Strike has been actually so effective, and that's not something I normally get to say about builds here. Look at this, though. Temper makes it to the point, very low, and the Whirlwind not there. He's going to go down to the Cyclone.
Yeah, the Cyclone's going to make sure not only they get that pick on him, but make sure that they can do what they're doing right now. Full send into the enemy team. They find 3 kills. Playtech trying to find a better opportunity for themselves. He finds a double kill on the Victor. But everyone else falls suit to the death ball that is Parallax's Gaming's composition right now. And they have once again captured the midpoint for themselves. They can get it through.
And early damage onto Temper will force that shield, and the cards barely even turned around the corner, but Temper already down with a shield as they take a little bit of space here, and nothing really being taken by anybody else. They just keep walking out, being forced down, and Temper just gives it up, so only Squishy's remaining for them to fight. And I like how Parallax are playing this. They have Kron's already set up in a great position, but Nando can't really survive on point. And how are they going to walk out into a Strix with this much damage separating the two of you?
Yeah, it seems like they aren't really able to make it past them. Parallax is trying to push into the opposing team here. They use the Midnight to see if they can force things off. Kuzik has to back off instantly. They even get the kill off of the back of the Midnight as well. Looking for Playtech. Plugs in a lot of damage, but doesn't find the kill they were looking for. Spexy is not gonna let that Victor live though. He's gonna make his way all the way into the back line and find that pick onto the Victor. They're gonna be able to actually roll this car right on in. As soon as Timber makes it back, he's gonna go down. They use the Whirlwind to try and provide for him, but okay. Parallax Gaming, they prove why they're the top dogs, why they're the #1 seed. They win with a 4 DPS composition.
Yeah, and Darius, I think, was trying to play that a little bit safer. He was trying to use the Whirlwind and sit behind the column to try to heal the Nando Temper through the wall, but Temper just went the other way. I mean, what are you going to do? Temper's on the other side of the map. Darius knows he'll die at the insta-peak, so just try to get a little bit of healing maybe in time, but unable to happen for them, unfortunately. Tempest team go down again to the quad DPS composition that I mean, no one was probably expecting to win as handily as it did by the end. They struggled to push, but once they spent those ultimates, they made it work. We'll look at the stats and see exactly how the numbers turned out here. High damage, I think, to the surprise of nobody across the board for the 4 damage team, with Temper soaking up 111,000 in his chest and 136,000 in his shield.
Yeah, in terms of the damage numbers, 94k on the Spexy, 77k on both. No, sorry, I misread that. Well, actually, no, on both 77k on both Dintic and Playtech, a couple points away from matching each other in the same damage numbers, but even still, Parallax are the ones that come out on top of this, still cementing the fact that they are the #1 seed and showing why they can be the #1 seed, especially when you pull this off against a team like Tempest team. Mm-hmm. You have a 4 DPS composition and you have Corvus as well. It's hard to try and break through that, I suppose. I mean, well, that's not true because Tempest team shown that they were able to break through the composition. It was just those mid fights to where they really struggled. They weren't able to submit themselves on the point because all they did was play around the corners. They just wanted to make sure that they always had the advantage in terms of line of sight.
Yeah, for sure. And the DPS actually on Tempest team, I think, played it pretty well for how enabled they were. Walther going 15-7, Playtech going dead even, but I think his job wasn't really to finish off those kills. He did the damage, which he did, 77,000, which is 22k better than Walther did. So even split, I think, for them there. I think it went at least decently, but Tempest team, I mean, after losing a 4 DPS, they really have to figure out what they want to do. I do have the next map that they chose here, and it's going to be Stone Keep.
Okay.
So far we have seen the same 3 maps today, and if Tempest team want to give us a little bit more flexibility, they're going to have to win this one, which, I mean, after that last map could be a tall task, but still a little bit that they have to go through. As I prep the draft for you, we can get that up right now. Stone Keep map number 3 could be the last one if Tempest team can't figure out how to turn things around against them.
Yeah, you just they have to find some sort of they have to find something that's going to work against Parallax Gaming, because if I'm them, I just got dealt mental damage. Like that's how that feels. Losing to a 4 DPS composition is not something that anyone can say that they've lost to in a long time, right? I don't think that's a go-to that we see a lot of these teams actually picking up, but if Parallax can do it, then by all means, let them do it. Torvald, Ash, Genos, and Makoa, all in the ban column here. As now Tempest team has to pick their first character here. And it's going to be Corvus, actually. They want the sustain for themselves.
Redemption just also really likes this Corvus. I feel like they just give Redemption Corvus literally whenever they can. So I think it makes sense to try to get it for him, make him comfortable if they think it's going to get by any further here. Rom is the first pick up, and Grover, get rid of one of the counters to Rom and have the Whirlwind to protect against any aggressive play if that's the direction that Tempest decide to go. I'm actually going to double check really quickly and see if anyone is still on controller. Now, I don't see anyone saying that Kron's got off the controller, so I'm going to assume that he will still be playing on it this game. We'll find out if he's going to play anything in particular as we get further into the draft. But for now, just a nice kind of hybrid start for Parallax, and I think it leaves a couple choices still open.
Yeah, plenty of choices for them to pick. And I noticed something in chat. Somebody said, why did Fawn actually change his @? No, my Twitter is not actually @JimFawnRD. It's just a joke for today. If anything, it might actually... I don't know. Might be a continuing running joke. Who knows? But
listen, if you ever don't have a camera working again, I'm not getting another picture. This is it. I'm not going out of my way to get another picture. You're stuck with it now.
Well,
I'm sorry to tell you.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. Honestly, Corvus and Trux's tricks. Rom, Grover, Maeve on both sides here. As Ruckus is going to be the 4th pick for Parallax Gaming.
Really aggressive.
Very, very aggressive composition. I agree. You're going to be able to put a lot of pressure on a lot of different people and just make it really, really hard to try and push through any of this, because Parallax Gaming have proven that they really, really want they really, really want to be aggressive. They have these aggressive compositions in their minds, so they have the capability to draft a sort of quadruple DPS composition. This just proves that they want to continue doing that. They want to submit that. They want these aggressive compositions, and when you have a Grover as well, that's pretty big. That's huge because of the buffs it is that he received. That means that they have a lot to try and fight through again for the 3rd game in a row on Stone Keep for Tempest team.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of damage and a lot of aggression here for Parallax Gaming. The only mismatch here is that Parallax are going to be super duper run you down aggressive with a Grover. That doesn't necessarily match up 100%, and they're going to have this Grover playing pretty aggressive with them, but if they just play as a death ball, it's just a hit scan death ball, they can kind of play, and then the Maeve, of course, on top of that, but can still work here. I think the Koga is an interesting choice to finish things off for them, but actually, now that I'm loading into the game, I see why they chose Koga, because Kronz never did unplug that controller. He is the one playing Koga here, which means I'm assuming a Spexy... Oh, no, it's... Okay, it is Aspexy Maeve, Dintic Grover, Outlander Ruckus, Kronz Koga, Kuze Rom. We can head into the game, which you can't see that yet, but you will be able to see at least the talents chosen by them, by everybody except, oh no, this means someone disconnected during the game. That is the Strix, who is running Nocturnal. So Darius on that Strix is on Nocturnal. We'll see if that ends up staying the case as we go into it. But let's take a look here. Super aggressive composition by Parallax. Nothing really too surprising in terms of how they're building, but definitely who's playing what is interesting here as role swaps across the board for them, but they ended up with a pretty solid composition, at least on their receiving end.
Yeah, it's pretty standard talents, pretty standard loadouts as well. I mean, these are the characters that we've been seeing consistently time and time again throughout the PPC, and they still hold weight to them overall. But look at, oh boy, mounted up and ready immediately through the church here as they put so much pressure on Determinus. They just say, forget the point, but they lose someone on the way in. Kronz goes down first before anything else, and they actually managed to turn the engagement on its head on the side of Tempest team.
And they go in, and look at this, Bounce House cancels the dash. That's one of the reasons to use it. Kuze goes down, but now they immediately run away and say, all right, we got to get capped, guys. I know this is fun, but like, let's go, please. Cap the objective. Walther dangerously low as they run away, and if they stagger these kills, Tempest team might have a chance to keep this locked down.
Yeah, 51% Parallax Gaming so far. Buck wants to move in, see if he can get any damage. Doesn't want to commit around the corner, though, just in case anybody else may be waiting. As there's 51% to 51. And now the percentage lead has been taken by Tempest team. As Parallax Gaming are trying to find their way back in. Rom runs in to see if he can lead the charge here. As the rest of them follow suit, they find plenty of damage in the Ruckus, and they find that finishing kill for them. 1-for-1 trade. You get rid of Outlander, you get rid of Dars, and now you have a situation where you have to touch, but they don't. They weren't paying attention to the point the entire time. Unlucky for them. Didn't take Kuze. They're going to be able to find the kills here. Same thing can be said for Retention as he goes down following the rest of his teammates to the grave and sent back to the spawn doors. And now Buck has to see if he can make his way out. He does manage to escape, but even still, Parallax are going to hold him.
So, Fawn, do you want to know how I know that Kronz is still kind of new to the sticks here? Sure. He is never changing his... He's never changing his his y-axis at all. He is a x-axis gamer at the moment here as Parallax's aggression gets completely stalled out by this triple scan DPS composition that Tempest team here have drafted. Now just watch Kronz. I'm gonna give it a minute. When Kronz is back in a fight or aiming things, he is truly only aiming on one axis here. So this Andro piloted by Playtech might actually make things a little difficult for him if he goes above him and makes him have to look in two different directions. But here we are, the slight adjustments here, but again, just truly circle gaming here from Kronz in the backline.
Rom runs in, forces out the leap from Buck in the backline, but Playtech is going to get shot out of the sky. They're going to find the same fate for Strix. The rest of the team retreating. They're catching them while they're running. 1-0 for Tempest team. They're the ones in the lead here, but will they be able to make it back to the car? Parallax seem to have a pretty good setup. If they do make it back, they will not have much time remaining.
Yeah, it's looking great. They're pretty far forward, with locking them into spawn, and going to be very hard to break through. I think it's going to have to be the flankers more than anything, because Terminus, not the best mobility in the world. But look at this engagement. I mean, they whirlwind to keep themselves alive. The DPS are so low. They don't lose anybody just yet, but a Cataclysm comes in. It gets 3, and they're going to clean him up.
Finds 3 members slipping on the side of Tempest team. You find 3 kills and find a 4th one as one tries to retreat to the spawn doors to see if they can even make it out of this engagement here. You have about 15 seconds remaining. I don't really know if they can even make it back to the cart, let alone make it value for them. And it seems like he just jumps over the side or jumps over throughout the arches and lands right into multiple enemies. They won't be able to make it back at all.
Yeah, it's not going to really happen. Playtech tries, but there's just too much ground to cover. This forward hold by Parallax made things incredibly difficult for them, and the aggressive composition, just those 2 tanks, I think, being there also made it even harder to break through, right? That you don't have the 3 tanks, you don't have the 2 tanks, excuse me, you can't out-sustain them, so you just poke and farm credits, honestly, I think. You farm ult charge, you farm credits, and you hope you have enough to go in here. Only one missing their ultimate on the side of Tempest team will be Darius, on his Strix, not able to pull out that flashbang here, but not as important. He'll get it pretty soon, and They're probably just happy that there's some ultimates missing from Parallax. No Whirlwind, no Cataclysm. But I think the play here is going to be a very fast use of that Midnight with a Hexafire coming in right behind it. Tempest team have to be so careful. Look at them waiting. They're not even going. Look at all this ground Parallax have by existing fun. They're just sitting in keep. All they have to do is exist, and Tempest team literally aren't even showing up to mid.
Well, Dars is not in a good spot. I mean, he's just sort of vibing in the back, if anything. And now they find their opportunity to move into church. They want to see if they can apply the pressure, and they do. Is Dars okay? Has he dismounted? What is Dars doing?
It's okay, Fawn.
No, wait,
it's a strategy. It's a strategy, Fawn.
Okay.
He's here. Oh, all right. And that's probably why Strix wasn't in the post-game stats. It was a very long stall that he did, and he stalled so long, he left the game. So now they're going to be trying to get him back in as Walther pauses it there. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back soon, but he will not be in the best position on the other end of this fight. It will be quite difficult, I would say, to get him back in here. Walther gets the pause, but Parallax, they have so much control, especially with everyone still waiting in the spawn. None of them are really back quite yet. They're going to have to send a squishy in for sure to actually touch this objective. I don't know if they win when they're down numbers. Triple DPS, you really have to trade out every single member of the team as you go. If you don't make that happen, it makes the game really difficult, especially against a tanky comp like Parallax have.
Yeah, and it seems like they aren't really... I mean, with the draft that they have, they're able to at least fight back, and we've seen them be able to pick off a couple members on the side of Parallax time and time again. I have been able to catch them out. The bounce house is working out for them pretty well, because every time Buck jumps in, he manages to knock up Braum right when he's about to sprint. It's working for them. But what's not working for them is the fact they aren't able to hold on to these leads. A lot of the times where they're trying to go for some of these fights, they just end up being mispositioned. Somebody gets picked a little bit earlier when they should have, right? That's bad positioning. That's what leads to situations like that, especially when your team has the advantage. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's an easier thing to rectify, especially if it's a map you're used to playing on. But even still, I mean, Parallax, they're firing on all cylinders, and they aren't stopping. They don't care. They aren't worried about what Tempest team might have in store for them.
You know what? I'll quickly mention this because I just remembered it. The message posted when Darius disconnected was lights out. So we'll see how long it takes him to reconnect. It looks like it actually was not a Paladins related thing. Looks like maybe he's getting a whole fuse to replace it, because this has been a quite long pause, I will say, with it playing in triple speed on my end and still being on pause. But it looks like he actually did just reconnect on my end. They're probably just making sure everything's okay, that no one's gonna cut the cables in the back room here. And it looks like they are ready to keep going here back in the game. Parallax, though, they maintain control, and Darius definitely not in the best position. That bot that took over for 2 seconds threw him right into the Wolves, and Tempest team are probably just gonna have to give this up.
Yeah, 90% for Parallax Gaming, and to a point conversion, obviously, as everyone else has been either as mounted up still and being forced not to move around the corner, or has already been dismounted, and or has too low of a health pool to make it to cards, or to make it to the objective to even stall for overtime. It seems like they're playing most of their focus here on the high ground. Ruckus drops down for a little bit. Spexy is there to help out, tossing out the dagger. Cat Turtle is going to be able to do a little bit more. Versus arm gets tossed out as well. As they manage to find a beautiful mid-air shot onto the Ruckus. They move it to the back, but that might be a little bit more than he would have hoped for. They trade things out 1-for-1. Bud jumps in, but then reconsiders it and moves out. He's not going to try and commit to that at all. As Kronz is brought down pretty low, but even still, you've got 1 minute and 40 seconds on the clock. Plenty of time for Parallax to see how they'll handle this engagement. Here, Ruckus on the side. He has a Hexafire. I feel like he might be looking for a time to use it, and there it is. He's looking for different targets. Tries to see if he can find anyone. They find 2 people on the side of Tempest's team. It's now Timber. Try and live.
He got off the point.
And even still, they're going to roll the car right on forward. Timber moves off the objective and allows Parallax Gaming to make headway, even if it's a little bit. That's not what you want, especially in a situation where your team just got picked on.
Look at these kills from Walther, though. I think great job of them coming back in. Doesn't get the bounce house, though. The cancel on the roof doesn't work as well as they needed it to, and they're surviving, but they're not thriving here on the objective.
Right.
Temper is barely hanging on and needs to get this reanimate if they actually want to keep this health.
Playtech goes down on the sides here. It seems like their only option is going to be able to try and see if they can get the reanimate, but it's not enough. 3-1. Parallax Gaming in control here. Tempest team getting 1 point against Parallax Gaming, but even still, Parallax have never let go of the reins here. They're leading their team to victory. Kresnik, is there anything at all that Tempest team can do?
Now, this is going to be kind of controversial, Fawn.
Okay, yes.
And I think that it's a bold decision that I think they might have to make. I would recommend showing up to mid. I think I know it's a bold statement by me, but I
honestly,
think
I can't even believe you said that.
listen,
how dare you?
I know
In
it's
front of all
really
of these beautiful
it's
Paladins
out of
fans.
left field, but it's very hard to win the game if you don't play it. And Tempest team need to at least try something because they literally did not show up. I get it. I get that Walther was not there at the start, but they did eventually fight, so clearly they did not realize what the situation was as I almost knocked my mic over while talking with my hands when none of you can see me, but this might be a play. They're countering the aggression now, but they have the whirlwind in the way instead.
Yeah, now Buck has to reconsider actually trying to fight to stall their engagement here. They want to move in. They pop the Cobra ultimate as well. Just see if they can get a little bit of his own there. Tries to see if he can knock him off. Maeve manages to escape, goes right back up and over the rainbow, finds herself out, but then of course decides to reconsider, take some steps back and becomes okay.
And this seems to be happening on point during this with Kuze dealing with Temper here that he will spend the reanimate because if they don't have this anything to do here, but he could just face tank it with his run, 50% damage. Everybody's here, but they might be distracted from the respawners from Tempest.
Yeah, it seems like they use Midnight to try and counter out whatever Parallax might be doing, but I don't think they have a chance to make it even to touch on the objective here. And Droxus does, so he's at least able to cause overtime. But Cataclysm, he has to make it out almost instantly. Drops back down, touches it, but his corpse was the one touching the objective here. Hexifier, victory shots in the air, the whole 9 yards, fireworks everywhere. Parallax Gaming take this 3-0 over Tempest team.
Yeah, and I think that end fight kind of tells you all you need to know about how that game was going. The tanks just dealing with each other while the rest of the game happening on the other side. The fight was actually not even that one-sided that was happening on the other side. They just spent the ultimates, and I think that they got a little bit more value out of them on the side of Parallax. But we can take a look at the stats for that game, see if anything changed. And again, because Darius disconnected in the middle, he is not with his team, nor is he here at all. He is a ghost in the system, and Outlander will be taking his spot on Tempest. And Parallax apparently won that 4v5, so props to them. A lot of damage done by a Spexy, actually the most in the game, but Playtech, surprisingly, even on that game that happened, not that far behind.
Yeah, he actually was able to make it work for him, honestly, and I think that's a great look. That's definitely what you want to be able
also
to
playing on like 100-ish ping, by the way, because Playtech is a North American player.
Right. And that's what's important to take a note here too. And I feel like I maybe should have mentioned that, but I'm glad that you did, because that's definitely something that you need to keep in mind, is the fact that Playtech is a North American player playing in the Brazilian region, so his ping is not all peachy, all peaches and cream like you may be expecting it to. 3 and 10 though for Playtech. Rough game. 4-7, 4-7, 1-4, 9-4 for Outlander, but not gonna the same.
No, shoutouts, Fawn. Shoutouts, Fawn. Outlander of Tempest team for going positive. I mean, what a performance!
I was gonna say I'm not gonna make the same mistake this time. I'm gonna say Outlander, even though he's on Tempest team right now, subbing in. He's gonna make his way on the Parallax game. I see the people in chat saying 4v5 stop. Yeah, Parallax are just that good, honestly.
Even without Midtow. Actually, you know what Midtow was doing? Midtow was recording it to show on his stream later. Yeah. And that just a truly multifaceted streamer and performer there for them, Parallax Tempest. I think it went about the way that we expected. Again, bottom seed versus top seed. Parallax still undefeated here in this region. Great performance by them. And zooming back a little bit further in the day, I mean, think about what we got to see at the very beginning. We got to see, I mean, it's only been an hour since then. It doesn't feel like it here because the sun's already down completely. I'm pretty sure it's still sunny in Georgia, but not that bright out here. Chroma versus Celestial, that matchup that we saw that could potentially, once we get to see the standings later in the week, could potentially decide who makes it to the 2 worlds. You know, the top 4 from each region potentially are the ones that could be there. That being in the top 4 is so important, and Celestial, it really is just slipping further and further away. I don't even know if it's in reach anymore, barring some crazy circumstances in the last couple of weeks.
Well, that's all we got for today, guys. Brazil, Europe, both of them out of the way for today. Those are all the matches that we have to be able to show to you. But be sure that you guys tune in tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern for the Paladins Pro Circuit Minor League. And on Tuesday.
Now, I will explain again really quickly. I know you were doing the close, but I'm going to take it just to be 100% positive with this.
Go for it.
Tuesday will be the next day of the PPC community broadcast. Now, the reason things got shifted this week, not just because of the delay in the broadcast schedule, because the timing and the amount of matches are going to stay the same, but my sister's getting married this weekend, and I pretty much need to be here to run this just for staffing reasons, more or less. There are some other game playoffs happening this week that will take probably the majority of everybody, and I'm going to be watching my sister get married this weekend, so really happy for her. But just to make everything work for the community broadcast, it had to be today. It has to be on Tuesday instead. So Tuesday at 2 o'clock is going to be the equivalent of our Friday broadcast this week. There's going to be 4 games that day, including the 2 North American games that are going to be shown. And then Thursday is going to be just like normal. The main broadcast team is going to take that. I will not be there, but they will have, of course, fantastic games for you to watch. Thank you guys so much for coming out here on the off day. I know it wasn't super well pushed out there, but we still got our usual gamers, our usual viewers here to come and watch. We have, again, more games on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget to check it out. I have been Kresnik. That has been Chef Fun RD, my fantastic... Yes. Now, congratulations on the culinary degree, by the way. I'm very proud of you, and I'm just happy that you managed to see some success. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.